in, Marty, and everybody who's joining. I've got a pinned comment on YouTube. I don't know if you have it on Facebook, but I've got it in the comments up there. That's Marty's channel. And I've known Marty for a long time. And basically, Marty, I'll let you tell them about yourself and that too. And, with your, I know he's into farming, and I want to talk a little bit about what you do with the worm wrangling and that, but also that you've got like a small space and how you're setting up like your backyard. You don't have like a farm, like me. It's just
No.
you've got your small space and you're setting up the front yard and getting the community involved in all of that.
Yeah, so organics background from studying at an agricultural college. A bit over 20. I keep losing track, but it's around about year 2000. So quite a while ago now. And then developed a few small. Before then, I had a couple of micro farms where I sold food to restaurants and things, but never really in a what I'd call it was okay, but it was never really in a professional manner because I didn't really know other than sort of like the home gardening stuff. And then just sort of moved into small space gardening and then moved into micro farming. And then it's always been something around, just, like that people can do in their sort of backyards and things like that. So I teach a bit of organic gardening mixed with, some stories around the micro farming and things like that. But it's always about scale. You can take this really quite big or just keep it quite small. And it's, it's based around the sort of the worm farming and building really good soils and using sort of the, they call it the soil web. Basically is, so many different things, and there's just multi-millions in that soil down there, where the smallest thing is a scorpion that you can get onto. A smallest scorpion in the world is down in the soil web. You can put it on a microscope and things like that. So, you got centipedes and worms and all different types of things, slaters and all this, all working for you. So that's something that I teach. I know it's not sort of super sexy, but
Right.
it's just where it's at for me, and I feel it's got a long future, steering away from just tapping into nature to do the work for you.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's what I'm all getting into. Like you were talking about the soil, the food web, and everything. And it's I had no idea because it's and I was wanting to talk with you because as I was kind of switching stuff up. I'm kind of getting into permaculture and stuff, and I've done hydroponics for like years. Like I mean, ever since before I came on YouTube, and I've been watching Marty since I was watching your channel, Marty, before I even uploaded my first video.
Yeah, I remember you
So
saying. Pretty
yeah,
cool.
so it was a little bit of time there. So
Yeah.
we're not getting too old, but that was getting back there a little ways. And what do you call it? I was started doing the hydroponics and that too. First, I was doing microgreens, and that's where I found you. You were doing some microgreens and that.
Yeah.
And then I started doing the hydroponics, but now that I'm getting back in to the soil and that, I was looking into it, and there's a lot more information nowadays than there was before. And like you said, with all the stuff, people can give lectures, there can be, just all the stuff out there. And before I was under the impression that was you just put a plant in the ground, you threw some fertilizer on it, NPK or whatever, and called it done. And what you're talking about, like all the stuff underneath that's, goes on, and you're doing like the vermiculture and the worm farming. And even when you get to that point, it still goes way down. There's like this complex things of nematodes and all kinds of things going on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's really, really fascinating, to get into it all. And I just thought, since you've been doing it like me, I'm just learning it all. That's what I'm watching all of this. And it's like blowing my mind, all the different things, that's
Yeah.
involved in what you can do. And I get a lot of people like asking questions and all that. So, I thought it'd be cool to have someone on here. If anybody's got questions about like organic farming and the soil and vermiculture or anything like that, just go ahead and ask away, and Marty's here to answer. But like I said,
Yeah,
me, I don't know too much. I've been, I started microgreens, I got into hydroponics, and I just know the basic gardening that I have for years and that. So all this other stuff I really have not that much idea, especially like composting and that. Everybody's talking about composting and asking me questions, and I don't do much of that. So I know that you're doing something and building it up with your worms, and you're doing the hay bales and all that. If you want to like elaborate on all that kind of system you got set up.
Yeah, okay. So, well, really, it's all about the basics of it. So, if we're talking about a hydroponic system to growing in a pot to growing in the ground, it's all about the uptake of availability of uptake of nutrients to plants. Yeah. And
Right.
so I had a customer come the other day who's fully into, she's a vegetarian and stuff like that, and wants to make sure the soil that she's buying, the compost she's buying from me is organic and things like that. When I spoke to her about it, and I said, look, you probably can't grow all your own food. I said, I know I can't, so I've got to go to the local supermarket. So I look for the freshest stuff that I can, and then I purchase that because, you know, I know that this food has a sort of a shelf life, and as it sort of gets older, it loses its vitality. So, you know, the ultimate thing to think of first is to get the freshest food on your plate, no matter which way you're growing it. And then how to actually get the plant to uptake the nutrients is something like you're doing with the cracky method, right? And the different systems that you're using. It's in the water. Right. It's soluble to them. Plants uptake nutrients through water, right? So they can uptake the nutrients very quickly, quite efficiently, quite easily. There's a million different types of hydroponic and aquaponic systems, but they're all they're taking up the nutrient through water. Now, when we go into a pot and we're growing in a pot, say an organic pot, well, it's a little bit different. Again, there are some microbes and there are some things in there in the soil, and you will, even if you add a bit of, if you're lucky, there's a bit of fungi and things in there as well. But it won't live for a very long time in that. You need to keep up backfilling it and putting it back in because it's not connected to the soil ground. So when you're watering that, the nutrients that are in that pot, say for example, I make a potting mix now and it's got pine, it's a composted pine bark. I use a composted mushroom, composted cow manure, and an aged compost which has some worms go through it. So it has a bit of worm castings and things. Now, there's a lot of biology in there, but that will slowly die off. But it's in the pot, and it's also the nutrients are in the pot. So every time I'm watering that pot, the worm castings and the compost will release some of that nutrient available to the plant through the liquid. Now, and so we've got to keep repotting and filling up from the top and things like that, and putting liquid fertilizers on our pots and stuff like that, even if we're doing it organic. But the beautiful thing about in the ground, if you have the opportunity, is when you start feeding the soil with compost and some rock minerals, if you have it, and a good mulching system, then as the living web starts getting healthier, what happens is the plants are photosynthesizing and sending energy down into the ground like a big solar panel. And so that energy that's being sent in the ground forms in part of sugars, and then there becomes this biology of sharing. And so as the energy is going down the ground, the fungi and the different things that are living in the soil web, the microbes and everything like that, it's mostly through fungi based, it starts feeding the plants again. And so the plants go, yeah, I'll give you more A's, and they just swap this energy cycle. And then as the plant dies, if it's an annual, it gets chopped off at the ground, doesn't get pulled out. That root mass will die off and then keep on feeding that system as well. So we still always need water for the plants to uptake the nutrient, but it just changes as we go down the line from, say, a hydroponic system to an organic potted system to in the ground. If hopefully I've explained that nice and clear for people to get understanding.
Yeah. Let's go through a couple of questions here. And I like that you're talking about that, you know, the plants are taking stuff, you know, putting stuff in soil, because a lot of people think that all they do is take nutrients out. You know, that there's plants that take nutrients out and it's gone. They don't realize that, like you said, there's this little energy thing going on back and forth. Yeah. But Gabriella asked about how small exactly, 13-liter trash can or smaller even. Were you talking about for composting or the worm farm, or just let us know what you were asking? Did you know, Marty?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's growing in, you know.
Or growing.
Yeah, we need some more information, really.
Yeah, just let us know what you mean on that, Gabriel. Coffee grounds vermicompost is good for worms.
Yeah, it's very good.
And
Yeah. You don't put too much of it in your worm farm because it's very high in nitrogen and it can heat up. So the more nitrogen in some material, the more heat it gets as it breaks down. But on so a small handful every now and again as it disappears, then you put a bit more in. They really love it. It's a lot of good minerals in there too, other than the nitrogen. And it's a really good way to, if you've got like a compost pile that's open to the air, to feed the compost pile with that as well. And you can introduce some worms into the compost pile, but and the native worms will come in as well. So you've got compost worms that you can introduce, and native worms will turn up. But they love it. And if you've got access to it, just don't put it on too thick because it forms a crust and then the water can't get in. But if you put it on thinly so the water can get through, and then mix it through every now and again, yeah, great stuff. People should be using it more, and it's been a part of my composting system off and on for years actually. When I can get hold of it.
cool. Yeah, and if you don't drink enough coffee, if you're not a coffee drinker or whatever, some of the local coffee shops give you the used grounds like for free or something. Around here, I know there's some places we can go up and ask, and they'll give you a 5-pound bag of it or something.
Yeah, they're happy for you to take it away because you're saving them on the waste to going out in their bins.
Exactly. What is the cheapest and easiest way to compost?
Cheapest, easiest way is to, which we love this because you're telling a lot about cheap and easy. So you just
Yeah.
need a carbon source, so a wood chip, newspaper, something like that. What they call a browns, and then your food scraps that are coming out from your home. That's the simplest way. And if you can get any free stuff from your neighbours or whatever, so 2 parts browns to 1 part one. Turn it over regularly, keep it moist, and round about 1 square meter you get when you've got 3 cubic feet, I call it, that gets hot, and that'll
Mm.
compost faster.
Oh, cool. Let's see. We got Janice said after the fire. Oh, we're sorry about that. And losing 23 raised beds. Wow. And all my worms. I'm going out living in a motorhome and I want to grow whatever I can and I need my worms. Do you think I can raise worms and build a small system in a miniature that can travel with me and the worms and the soil compost will be good?
There are some smaller worm farms that you can buy now that are out on the market, if you don't want to go that sort of DIY style, because they're just made really well and they don't leak and things like that. Sometimes you make the DIY ones, all of a sudden something malfunctions and you've got
Yeah.
something going wrong in a home like that. That's probably not a good thing. So yeah, just do a bit of research on some of the smaller ones. I don't know what they have in your countries, but I don't normally mention brands, but I know Maize, which I don't like to say this, but because they never really taken care of me much. But Maize have a smaller one, and I think
Mhm.
look, there's a few different ones. And there's so many different brands in different countries and things like that. But I know Maize has a smaller one that I quite like, and it fits underneath a small sink and things like that.
Oh, cool. And there's so how, let's see, how come you know so much, Marty? Okay.
My
No, I've been in this for decades. Okay.
Hey, Dad.
Let me ask an even more basic question. Is vermiculture different from compost? It's a good
Actually, no,
question.
that's a really good question because vermicomposting, vermiculture is really a part of composting. See, the worm is a compost worm that lives in compost. So we're really just taking our compost to another level once we start adding the compost worms to it. And you know, basically a worm casting works to around about 10 to 1 as a fertilizer, and if you use more it's sort of a bit of a waste, and it's just this great little fertilizer that holds biology that expands and contracts with the weather and the moisture, and lasts for about 6 months in a pot or a soil profile, because it's slow release. So when you're adding them to your compost system, you're really just creating, you're starting to put the thing on. I don't like to say this word steroids because it's wrongly used, but you're really power driving it. You know what I mean? Like you're really starting to set things off, and you'll notice the difference once you start using the two. There is a difference that you will see in time. Yeah, g'day. This is cool. So we're streaming on my channel and your channel at the same time. So
Yeah,
g'day,
yeah.
guys.
Technology's always just moving. That's what I was like. That yeah, it's pretty cool. Everybody's
Yeah,
coming in and out. Hey,
yeah.
Jeannie, how are you doing? Hi, y'all. I'll be heading back to the Reddit soon. That's cool. Just wanted to stop by and say hey from the snowflake. Hello, Arizona. I know you're kind of warm out there. We had a record high today, but it was up over 97. But there's people in triple digits. They've been in triple digits, Marty, someplace like over 110 Fahrenheit for 30 days in a row.
Oh, that's scorching.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
The
here's a
worms
good
would
one.
like that.
Can I use fishing worms in compost? The local farmers
Yeah,
market sells worms for fishing.
yeah, for sure. They're actually a type of they're what they call the night crawler. So, I can't guarantee this because I haven't seen his worms, but generally they're night crawlers and they're bigger worm. There are a few other ones that they use for fishing. But yeah, you can actually buy some off him, put him in the compost, breed your own, and you got free fishing worms.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Anytime you need to go fish instead of going to buy them now, you just go dig you out a handful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Once again, 104. Yeah. We've been having nasty weather over here. Thank you for the breakdown.
You're welcome.
See. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. And did you clarify? Did we answer their question? Yeah. Okay. The basic question. Okay. Awesome. Just making sure all these names are coming by on the same Facebook and YouTube and everything. So
Yeah,
hard to
right.
keep up
Doing
with
a good
everything.
job there, Mike. Yeah.
What are the best foods to feed worms?
Uh just organic kitchen scraps, all of it. Just stay away from like dairy, citrus, and onion, and you're pretty much right to go. No meats, obviously, unless you really know what you're doing in composting. You just
Mhm.
generally avoid all those things. And if you've got if you want to do something like a special treat for them, some cooked white rice or some cooked oats with a little bit of sugar in the oats when you're cooking it, they
Right.
love that. Yeah, bit of a
Oh,
treat for them.
cool. I'll give them a little treat.
Mm.
The monsoon rain, cooling thing. Yeah, at least it cool things down. Nice. Let's see. Got another one here. Are there different types of worms?
Yeah, there are. So there's literally thousands, but there's about 4 or 5 that people work with. The red wiggler or the tiger worm is the most predominant one, and then they've got some things called blues, African, you got night crawlers and things like that. But generally, overall, if we're just starting out, you just should look for the tigers or the red wrigglers, they call them, and sometimes they'll sell them just in a bunch. Like when I get mine from, I just get there's about 6 different types in there. So yeah, don't be too worried about it unless you're going like into sort of like fishing or something like, and you need the bigger one. But
Yeah.
the wriggler is the predominant one because it just can handle fluctuations of temperatures and food changes, and it's just a tougher little worm.
Okay, so that one's actually better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Overall, yeah,
Yeah, just about everywhere we go here, we can get red wigglers and that too.
yeah. They're the most common because they're
Okay.
probably one of the best.
When I feed my worms, I always throw in a handful of ground up eggshells. I grind them in the coffee grinder.
Yeah, it's a good way to go. Get them as small as possible, so it gets into the gizzard because they're a bit like a chicken. They need to have some grit in their gizzard to help process the food, move the
Mhm.
microbes down through the stomach line. That's the one thing about it. They've got all these microbes in their stomach line. When you've got the grit in there, it picks it up and pushes it through, and then it will drop that microbe somewhere. Really interesting stuff. I remember the first time I spoke to a professional worm farmer, he said, make sure you've got cow manure in your mix because it's a microbe in the cow manure that you just can't get anywhere else. So these different foods that we feed them just help, produce different microbes and things in our soil profiles and stuff like that. Without getting too nerdy, but yeah,
Yeah,
great tip. Yeah,
no,
thanks, Down Under Full Up.
that's cool. Now, if I've got like real sandy soil in that, Do I have to like grind up a bunch? Can I just toss my eggshells in and they break down, take a while in that, or should I?
Yeah,
Is it
you
small enough?
can. Yeah, especially when you're planting tomatoes, like, and you want to have that calcium so you don't get the blossom end rot on certain types of fruits. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, before you're planting, yeah, you throw in the crushed up, especially in a grinder, like you're saying there, and then eventually it starts breaking down a bit and become bioavailable to the plant, and then the microbes and things will go through it and chew it up, and the worms and stuff like that too. So yeah, why not?
Cool. Cool. Yeah. So, let us know a little bit, Marty. You're setting up your yard. I know we're hot. We're like in the middle of summer over here, but you're just coming into spring, right? Or
Yeah,
has it started? Or
yeah,
okay.
just
So
coming in the spring. Yeah.
all right. So you're getting into the nice growing season, the one that everybody's waiting for, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm building soils at the moment because we're gonna got a dry season coming up. So it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a bit wetter in the States over that way in the Americas and drier over here. You know, the whole El Nino, La Nino swap thing, it swaps over. So um, I'm just preparing my soils here with building these sort of above ground raised beds with the bales and then compost on top and getting the worms to go through them. And I've only dug one row up the side
Mm-hmm.
uh, where I'm planting some tomatoes. We just sort of run out of money to buy bales, basically, and go, well, we need to keep planting. And
Right.
so yeah, and so but they will be connected up to there's worm farm systems, above ground ones that start being connected up to the around the space, so we can harvest from them. They hold around about anywhere from 200 to 400 liters, depending which size drum I'm using. Um, and then when we pour the water in, it's just near the plant. It soaks down through the worm farm system, the above ground one, and
Mm-hmm.
then sends moisture off into the water for the plants that are around it, and also it's attracting things like the fungi and other native worms and things like that to move into that area. So I call it the acceleration point. So we're getting close to that acceleration point where when we're feeding the earth and the ground, that the native worms will start breeding more and everything going, this is really nice here. We can have more babies and, the microbes start breeding much faster. And so we're getting close. I think by the time we're sort of in the spring, end of spring, and the soil starts warming up, we'll hit that, what we call acceleration point of just the soils are really starting to get really healthy. And that's when the plants start really taking off. But without getting too nerdy, you sort of need to check some stuff on my channel to watch that to sort of get a deeper understanding, because it sounds really complex, but it's really quite simple. But it needs
Mm-hmm.
to be seen.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Let me say, somebody asked about the eggshells again here. I heard you should soak and ground eggshells in vinegar to help them break down faster. Is that true?
I think the acidity would definitely help break them down a bit faster if that's the case. But really, if you just grind it up like in as I've used a mortar and pestle, and it's got in a powder where the powder's almost coming out into the air. You know,
Right.
so it just depends on how you're doing it. And other times I'm just lazy. I just throw them in and just hit them a few times and go, "I'll see you later."
Yeah.
It burns in our time and all that. But it's better than throwing them in the bin. So yeah, we try and keep all our eggshells.
Yeah.
Yeah, but vinegar, it would speed things up a little bit, but just got to be a bit careful when you're adding things like that, because some things are acidic, and So I just like the idea of just crushing it, grinding it, and making it as small as
Oh,
possible.
yeah. Yeah. I think Jan, what you've heard about is if they're using it and it's not for like a worm bed or something, and if you're just trying to get the eggshells and extract the calcium, and then the vinegar in there, it kind of neutralizes a little bit. You can't just add like a gallon of vinegar. So there's a certain amount that you put with the eggshells, and it neutralizes. Then you can use that diluted and use that in your garden. So I think what we're talking about, or what Marty was talking about, was like grinding them up. It's getting calcium into the soil, but then it's also um, grit for your worms in that too, and there's a whole lot of other things. So that's what, if you're talking about just compost, or if you're talking about just like a soil amendment, that's you're just spraying around the yard.
Yeah, it's a good point you make there, because we need to understand the difference between a fertilizer and something that we're using to build the soil web up. So the fertilizer is what I'm talking about before, with the water uptake of the plants being able to uptake through the root system, whichever way they're doing that. So, but if you're feeding soils, yeah, you're better off. There is some stuff called Korean farming, and they know that system much better than I do. So that would be something, if you're interested in that stuff, look at that. I do mine a little bit differently through, but that works quite well. And some people just really like to go for that. But yeah, building biology by doing the Korean worm farming. I just wish I had more information on it. It's not something I've really looked deeply into it, but I've had some people speak to me and share with me that are highly in highest regard, and it works.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Cause I've been working on, I've got a little bottle of, that's just like fermented plant juice. Cause I've got the little lab going on here. So I made mine, but I put it in a little bottle here.
Yeah.
But it's and up there I've got some more fermenting, and inside the cooler I've got the LABS, the labs, the lacto acid bacillus.
Oh, right. Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. In the lab.
Yeah, so we're working on all that stuff. It's fun. Like we said, it's just different stuff. There's just so much information out there, and to get into all of these things, and because, like I said, when I started, my whole thing was, you put some plants out, you go up to Kmart or whatever. There was no Home Depots and Walmarts and all that back then. You go up the store and you go get a little bag of fertilizer or Miracle Grow or something, and you just throw it on the ground and work it in. And now learning all of the stuff that's going with it is really fascinating. And I'm getting to the point where I just get excited going out there, because I put mulch down everywhere. And now when I see mushrooms like popping up in the morning, before my mom was like deathly afraid of mushrooms, because your kids, and she's like, stay away from them, and and like trying to get rid of them. And now, I didn't have none in my barren backyard when I moved in here. It was just a big sand pit. And now I go out in the morning and see mushrooms, popping up under this tree and coming or moving the mulch, and there's like that mycelium and that, and then, it's just, so that kind of stuff's like getting me all excited, just seeing all this stuff, and like you're talking about working. I say working with nature and that, and what'd you say? Let nature do the work.
Yeah, nature do the work. So basically, that's really exciting, Mike. It just means your soil's becoming alive instead of dead, and the more alive your soil becomes, the healthier you in taking care of everything around you. The benefits just and it becomes easier over time. The first year or two is probably the hardest, and then it's just maintenance over that, and it just becomes easier, unless you get less weeds, you get less problems, less disease, less things, and you get to the point where you just go, one plant isn't doing good, you just throw it out, because you're not trying to save it and feed it and all this type of stuff. This plant does not work here, everything else is going great, this is not working here, I've just got to go. No, it's got to go. As much as I want it, unless you're one of those person that want to take it to the plant. I was going to say plant cemetery, but I shouldn't say that, like the plant nursery, right? And really take care of it. But I've got to that point now. I'm like, okay, you start off with this sort of like 10%, where you're losing 10%, and then as everything's improving, you're losing less and less. So it might only be 2 to 5% that you'll lose as your garden gets healthier. And I'm talking about to disease and pests, or just a plant that just doesn't like growing in your space because everything's different. It might like a different soil type or something like that. So
right.
So really, in all reality, you end up losing less and less over time, and it becomes easier to work with. So cheap and easy is really what we're talking about here towards the end.
Yeah, no, definitely. And let me see real quick. I've got does food grown hydroponically taste different from soil grown? And eggshell debate. Yeah, the eggshell question, we just answered that. So if you go on back a little bit and watch in this video, we just talked about the difference between if it's like a fertilizer or going into compost, and some people saying if you're going to bake it or not. And like Marty says, he just grinds his up and tosses it in. It's a treat for the worms and that. So it's not necessary. It depends on what you're doing and what your goals are. So both ways work. And
Yeah,
then the
but
other one, Marty, you want
interesting
to?
question though. Does food grown hydroponically taste different from soil grown? Gee, you're really stirring a. The comments is going to go mental in the bottom here after
Yeah.
reading this. But I've got something that I'd like to add to it. Look,
Okay. Yeah.
basically, what happens is with foods is it needs to have, so certain foods have more sugars uptaken into it. And so this is where we could have this massive debate. It could go on for hours about all these little things. But the more sugars you get up into your fruit, say, for example, there's a hydroponics tomato farm near here, right? And they harvest their fruit a little bit earlier than they should because they've got to have a 3 or 4 day wait period or a week wait period till it goes out to market. And so it really comes down to that example is how long can they leave it on the vine until then they can get it to market, right? And so
Right.
this is why a lot of the tomatoes and things taste terrible in the local stores around here. And then you pick one off the plant depending on how it's grown. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of debate about this, but that's the general thing is how much sugar can get into the food and the so you're also talking about the your chlorophyll amount, and when you eat plants and some green stuff and get that chlorophyll sort of taste. And then also like the different essential oils and things, like how like certain leaves and stuff like that, like lemongrass, and then we've got a lemon myrtle here, it's Australian one. You've got the kaffir lime leaf, these type of things. So the healthier the plant, as for example like that, I would say like a kaffir lime tree would taste better out of soil than it would maybe being, and it's almost impossible. It wouldn't be impossible to grow it hydroponically, but I'd say it would taste better because it's sharing a symbiotic system with the ground down below. But as far as certain things, I think it's pretty hard to prove because you've got to get a bricks test, right? Which is a little sugar tester. And then you would have to grow one in a soil, and then you would have to grow one in a hydroponically. It'd have to be exactly the same age, the plant, then the fruit would have to be the same age, and then you would do a bricks test. So it's nearly impossible to do other than you eating it. Different tomatoes taste different, like different species, different breeds and all this. So, man, I tell you this, and I've got some people who would just say straight out, they would say, yes, it does, straight off the rack. And other
Yeah.
people say, no, it don't. My experience is because they pick it too early, it's not real great. I've grown some stuff hydroponically in the past, and I don't know if I could have told the difference, to be honest, because I just ate it fresh. So I
Right.
don't know, like I don't know. What do you think, Mike? I know I've said a lot there, but it's a great question.
No, that's all true. That's and me, it's just like from experience. It's just growing the stuff and eating it. If the greens were all just like tasteless or whatever, I wouldn't bother doing it for years and years and years. Why would I, keep growing a bunch of greens that had no taste or flavor? And the tomatoes, like you said, I've tasted stuff that came out of the soil that was bland and tasteless. It depends on how you grow it, and you're not trying to grow the best of anything. If you grow a good tomato, and if you grow it in hydroponics or you grow it in the soil, that's what you're for. When some people, I know what you're saying, lots of people come on my thing, just say things growing in hydroponics have no taste. It's just bland and without, and I'm like, I think that there's some traditional gardeners out there somewhere, farmers or something, or some farm association like started that rumor and just put it out there, to get it going around when hydroponics first started coming around. But I've got peppers out there, that are just hot as can be. And it's not, if there was like no flavor coming off them, and not sweet peppers and that too, like cayennes and habaneros and that, and they're growing in the hydroponics. And so, it, like I said, it depends on how you grow it. It's the plant there, and it's like saying, uh, pineapple on pizza. And everybody's, argue, does it belong on pizza? And yes and no, and they're always like pick a side and pick a side. And we're like, why can't it be both? If you like it, put pineapple on your pizza. If you don't eat it. It's just like the hydroponics. So, instead of disparaging one or the other, I like everybody to grow. That's why I'm doing soil and that too, because hydroponics is good and it's easy and cost effective. I can do it over and over. The soil gardening, I'm getting into that. And I remember just picking stuff, we were in Miami and my mom wasn't a gardener, but if they threw tomatoes outside, like a little cherry tomato plant would just grow. No fertilizing, no nothing. And we'd always run by when we were kids. I remember just grabbing them and eating them, and limes and loquat and, and things. So, it can be both. You can have both. This thing about, one not being, so if it's just a question if hydroponics has any flavor, it has lots of flavor.
Yeah, or I think the biggest debate is really about nutrition, but that would be a whole different video and a whole different subject and the whole, and the whole different thing. But again, it's like I was saying, then you go into that whole debate about when was the plant picked, how was it grown, how long is the shelf life,
Right.
So then again, you're going off on a whole different thing. But it's a great question, and I think now we should maybe move on to the next one. What do you reckon, Mike?
Yeah, here you go. With gardening and hydroponics, there's a learning curve. I've lost many plants as a beginner. Will my worms be easily killed?
No, not always. Look, I've got a section on my channel called the Worm Wranglers. I'm not trying to sell anything here, but that's basically, if you go there, there's a couple of minute videos, and you can just access all the content quite quickly, go through it and just learn how to do it instead of watching tons and tons of content and getting wrong information from places and things, and just follow that system. Can't go wrong. Yeah. So that's probably my best answer for that.
Cool. And I've got, can you use fish emulsion in hydroponics?
I would say no. That would be my answer, but what do you?
Yeah, if they might be asking that because I just put out a couple of old videos with some funky looking stuff, and as I'm working with like the organic stuff, so normally that's the reason why we're doing the whole thing on my channel, is because people want organics to go in hydroponics, and it really doesn't work like that unless you have filtration. You've got pumps going everywhere, filtration, you're monitoring everything. There's a whole lot that goes into it if you want to do that organic stuff. But so I would stick with like master blend stuff and the things that we work with. If you're a beginner and you're just trying it, me, I've been doing it for years. I'm bored just doing it over and over, and people ask me to try this, so I'm trying it out. So kind of follow along and we'll have some fun with it and that. But
a good answer for that I think may help. So it's going off a little bit off track, but I've done it successfully. I don't have any content on it to show, because just my own little experiment behind the scenes over the years. And I've used cocoa fiber, and then I've used like things like fish emulsion, seaweed, and worm juice together, and put like little bit of the what do you call it, worm castings in with the potting mix, which is just basically cocoa fiber, and I've grown really good plants that way. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Especially
cool. I'll be talking with you a lot.
Green.
Yeah, I'll be asking lots of questions like in the next coming months, so it'll be lots of fun. Let's see. Can I put cantaloupe and watermelon in the same hydroponic container? That's Jan, how much have you grown? Yeah, other stuff that's really difficult stuff unless you've like gone through all the greens and other things, and even a tomato in that year. You're really getting into hydroponics with cantaloupe and watermelon. When those things start to fruit, you're going to be out there like replacing the nutrients all the time, or you're going to have a huge container. So
go for soil. I'd recommend that in soil more so if you've got that option. If not, you can get those little mini cantaloupes. They're only about yay big. But they'd probably use about the same amount as your tomatoes that that content that you were speaking about recently, how you had to keep filling it up. So you still have to use a lot, but there is a mini cantaloupe, which we call rock melon here.
Oh, okay. Rock melon. They pick some fruit like peaches and apricots when they're green. Yeah, they don't get any sweeter. Yeah, and that's the problem is, some people. So, and if you grow them at home and you've got a tree outside, you let it ripen up, and and there's nothing better than just picking them and eating them like that.
Yeah. Get
Yeah.
the sugars into them.
Pineapple and pizza. Yeah. Yeah. People throw their hands over that. Thank you. Let's see. What are Marty's thoughts on pruning air pots?
Air pruning pots. Oh, yeah. Okay. So like grow bags and the holes and things like that. I think they're great. Yeah. They just dry out quicker. That's all. So you've got to keep a lot more moisture up to them. But yeah, I think they're great, and they do work, and I've used them off and on. I've got some grow bags myself, but like I said, if you forget them and they dry out, that can be a bit of a problem. So you just got to keep the water up to them more.
Yeah. Okay. She says she didn't want to put the fruit in the ground in that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Go for the mini ones. The mini ones then. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would. Cool. Well, Marty, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Kind of give like some closing thoughts on that, and Marty probably be back. We've known each other for a long time, so this is pretty cool. I want to say hey to like people in Marty land too. I forget that we're streaming that way, and we're streaming to YouTube and Facebook and all over the place. So technology is just getting pretty cool. And you guys get your like questions together, DM me or email me at keepongrowing1gmail.com. And, if you, anything you want to see on a show and anything you want us to answer. And like I said, Marty would be a big help because I've been doing hydroponics, and most people came to my channel because they saw the hydroponics. And as I get into like the newer stuff and soil, people ask a lot of questions, and I really don't have answers because I'm like going through the baby steps. So it'd be cool to, have somebody we can ask, about stuff like that. So glad to have you here, Marty. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a real joy and an honor to always love coming on any show with you, Mike. And also, the people that are watching the streaming here, if you've got any other comments and things like that, I actually really enjoy these type of interactive types of content because we can really get closer to our viewer and really help them as much as possible. So yeah, leave them below if you're watching from my channel down there, and we'll probably look at doing something along those lines down in the future, just depending on how they go and people interact. And let us know if you've actually liked it or not. And this is not going to be something I'm going to be producing all the time. So some people, they come and watch these, they go, oh, this is what he's doing now. I like to mix it up. Just like we like to mix up our lives. Otherwise, they get a bit boring. So let us know down below in the comments if you liked it and what you'd like to see more of. And yeah, thanks, Mike, for having me on the show, mate.
Yeah, awesome, cool, appreciate it. And I just dropped Marty's link there for Facebook, and then on your Facebook page, you got a link over to your YouTube channel too, right? If you go all the way up to the top of the comments on both of these YouTube and Facebook, I've got Marty's channel pinned up there. So go check him out, and thanks, Marty. We'll catch y'all later. Appreciate it. Awesome. Good night.
Bye for now.